So
I got
you're
out.
out. You're
I was
out.
out so early. It was
Wow.
so bad.
Okay.
But it was fun. And it was at this venue called Pitch 25 in Houston where you're kind of like in the round. So we were on a court and people were in a square around us, just screaming and yelling. It was high energy
Mhm.
excitement. It was pretty awesome. But what I love about this conference every year, we're buyers, right? So
Mhm.
we book these large conferences all over the world. And it's the one time a year where all of the hotels and all the destinations come to us. And so I get to learn. I got to learn so many what's highly educational, but highly entertaining. So it was awesome.
Mm.
I was glad I went.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I like.
next year we're gonna be in your neck of the woods, Amani. So
Yes.
we've got to get you involved
Yes, we do.
next year.
Yes, we're gonna make that happen. We're gonna make that happen. Absolutely. Now, you said you had a question to ask me live on the show. I'm a little nervous, but I want to know what this question is.
Oh, be not afraid. I got you, Amani. I got you, buddy. Okay,
Okay.
everybody. Amani's birthday was September 14th. So if you remember from the last couple years, Amani always has some specific food on his
Mm.
birthday, and then he always buys himself a gift. So I need to know, did you have your pancakes? Yes or no? And also, what gift did you buy yourself this year?
Okay. So pancakes, not yet. I'm waiting to go to
Okay.
this restaurant, so not yet. Soon though.
Okay.
Gift. I actually bought myself a couple weeks prior a new Mac Mini computer. So that was a
Ooh.
big purchase. Used a little tax
Mhm.
refund. Big purchase there. So that's my gift to myself. Yes.
That's good. Okay, pancakes. Where you're in a new location this year for your birthday. So do
Yes.
you have a preferred pancake house, or what happens with that?
Yes, there is a restaurant that I want to try. I haven't found the place I love the most like I did when I was in LA. There's a
Mhm.
place, Early Bird, that I want to try that's really popular. So to be continued.
It's called Early Bird?
Yeah, it's called Early Bird. Yeah.
I like that. All right, anybody listening, watching, if
Yes.
you're in Vegas or the greater Vegas area and you've got a favorite pancake spot, let
Yes.
us know about it. Let Amani know about it so he can add to his pancake list.
So we'll do that. But you didn't say what was in your email box.
Oh, okay. I
Have
got
you?
an inbox. This is hot off the presses. I just
Yes.
got an email right before we started the show. Weird Al Yankovic is coming to the show in 2025. I love Weird Al Yankovic, but the Shell is such a beautiful, beautiful brand new venue. And to see him in San Diego, they go on sale on Friday. So it
Okay.
was it was very exciting. It just happened. It just
Okay.
happened in my inbox. So
Okay.
any Weird Al Yankovic fans, let me know if you'll be there. I'll
Got it.
be there. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Um, so our guest today is quite distinguished.
Yes.
Um, is a let me see, like many times for a TED Talk, has created and started many companies. I can't even, explain all these things. Part of the $1 Million Speakers Club, for National Speakers Association. I'm so excited to have Arel Moodie on the show. Let's bring him on the screen and let's begin our conversation. How about that?
What's going on,
Yes.
y'all? Thanks for having me. What's up, Amani? What's up, Mandy? How you doing?
Hey, Arel, thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh. Now I got to know about this pancake business. I got to know what the history of the pancake. Are we talking like
Yeah.
are we talking like one big pancake, or are we talking like multiple small pancakes? Or are we talking about fluffy pancakes?
Nice,
Good
fluffy stack of
questions.
like three pancakes, pretty above average size. Yes, size. So yes, that's what we're
We putting
talking about.
toppings on these
No,
pancakes?
no,
We putting
no. We keep it.
strawberries?
No, 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 no. No
It's
strawberries. No
purist.
whipped cream. No
No whipped
nothing.
cream.
Yes, just traditional.
Purist.
Yes, just pure. Now,
Support that.
I got. We have so many.
Butter? Are we doing
Yes,
butter?
butter. Yes, we're doing butter. We're doing
We
syrup. We're
doing
doing
syrup?
butter. We're
Okay.
doing all the things.
All right.
Yes,
Arel,
yes.
I love that you asked these questions, Arel. The
All
first
right.
time he talked about his pancakes, I went through the same. I'm like, peanut butter,
No,
bananas.
no, no,
What are we
no,
doing
no,
here?
no,
Maple
no.
syrup? Are we
Yes,
doing
maple syrup. Yes, no
maple syrup?
strawberry syrup. Maple syrup. We're
Okay.
traditional.
All right.
We like our pancakes. Let's see, where
Mrs.
should we?
Butterworth. All right, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. Yeah.
Keep it coming. Keep it
Yes,
coming. Get
yes.
us.
I think my first question I want to ask is, we do our research. Can you tell us what it was like to interview Daryl Strawberry?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Great question. So Darryl Strawberry was my favorite baseball player growing up. Like I have cards of his. When I played baseball, when you're a little kid, they always ask you, who's your favorite baseball player? Darryl Strawberry. I just thought, what he meant to New York, growing up in New York. He was kind of a legend. So I had started a podcast years back, and one of the fun things about doing a podcast, as both of you know, is you occasionally get opportunities to interview people because they want to be interviewed. It's part of, there's a symbiotic relationship between media needing guests and guests needing media. And we got this inquiry on our forum from Darryl Strawberry's people, and I was like, "What? Are you what?" So I was super, super excited about it. But Darryl just said something during the interview that really stood out to me, because I was fanboying so much of, like, I was like that, like trying to be professional, but being that little kid. And one of the things he said was like, wow, it was such a mix of feelings, because he said, I'm getting to a point in my life where I want to be known as more than just a baseball player. He had dealt with addiction. He had overcome addiction. And he wanted to talk about, like, things like that. And I realized that the pull and magnetism of what his previous life was is so great that it's almost impossible to have him on like a show and not ask baseball related. From his perspective, he was like, I want, I don't want to just be the baseball player. I want to be this version of myself. And I found myself very conflicted, because there was one part of me that wants to honor the man and honor what he's doing. And then there was the child in me that's like, I'm talking about childhood hero. How could I not ask him certain questions that I've always wanted to ask him? So that experience, actually, it was that juxtaposition of wanting to honor the man for who he is and where he is now, but also dealing with, like, seeing him through the lens of which I imagine most of the world remembers him by, as that, like, prolific baseball player.
Okay. And since you mentioned baseball, we know that in high school you played football, you were a baseball player and a wrestler, but you never really got in the game.
Yes.
How did that form the Arel that we know now?
Yeah. Man, this is already the best interview I've ever had in my entire. It's already, no one does this level of research. I feel like this is a Narwhal. It's the best.
Great reference.
I'm so joyful right now. So I played 3 sports. One of the reasons I played 3 sports is because I really actually wanted to just play basketball. Like, basketball was like my favorite thing. It just so happened to be that I had a team, a high school team, that, for frame of reference, produced 3 NBA players. So the quality of our basketball program was so elite that I had zero chance. So I tried to play these other sports to try to, like, hey, I wanted to do this one thing, but if I couldn't do this one thing, I could make up for it by doing a bunch of these things. And the reality was I spread myself very thin. So instead of mastering football, I wish I could say I was Bo Jackson, right? I was a master of baseball, master of football. So I played both. The reality was I was trying to compensate for not doing the one thing I wanted to do. So I did 3 things. So I was constantly rotating sports, but never really getting excellent at one. So because of that, I spent almost all my time, like, garbage time, bench, if we were up by 50, they're like, get in there, Moodie. And I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to catch a ball. It don't matter. So I kind of learned to appreciate a lot of things about that, like, then and now. But one of the big things that I realized is that when I played football, one of the reasons I never got as good as I could have gotten with the sport, my interpretation of it, is that I was afraid of getting hurt. Like, football is a very physical sport. Like, you run, you get hit. So I was so afraid of getting hurt that every play during practice, I never really gave it my all, because the fear got in the way. So I always wonder if I did not have that fear. Now, what's always comical about that part of the story is I tore my rotator cuff in practice. So the thing that I was most afraid of happened, and I didn't even play hard. So it's like, no one loves a football injury in practice. Like, let me, like, score a touchdown, win the game, and tear a shoulder,
Right.
So one of the biggest lessons I think I also got from it is, like, what you're afraid of can happen if you try hard or not try hard. So you might as well try hard and see where the cards land.
I love it. So over to you, Mandy, for the follow-up. We got our lists.
Oh God, there's so many spider webs on this I want to go down.
Yeah.
Well, while we're here, while we're at the Wayback Machine, you've been an extremely successful global speaker at the White House, featured on Forbes, New York Times, USA Today, 3-time TEDx speaker, tech founder, you a Disney host, you have all these awesome street cred. This started somewhere, right? So I want to
Mhm.
ask you, who is Victor Antonio
Mm.
and what impact did he have on your career?
Yeah, yeah. Favorite interview ever. Uh Victor Antonio, I owe a lot to that guy. So he's a professional speaker. People know him now as a sales speaker. So he teaches people how people buy, how to influence them. And he's really good. When I was in college, though, he was more of a leadership speaker in colleges, motivational speaker. So he had come to my college, and I actually had just graduated, and it was the semester after I graduated. So I heard that he was coming, and I got introduced to speaking years in the past. I had gotten to the Tony Robbins tapes and all those kind of things, but this was like my first time seeing a speaker who looked like me, who was from a similar background as me. So I was super excited because everyone I had seen before, like I was under the impression you had to be like a 7-year-old white guy to be a professional speaker, right?
Right?
Like 'cause
Right? Me
that's
too. Yeah, me
that's what I
too.
saw. So he
Yeah.
was the first dude who was like a dude of color, bald, he had swag. So when I had found out he was coming to college, I actually went back. This was like the semester after I graduated. I went back and I saw him, and I came up to him afterwards and I said, "Hey, man, in like 20 years, I want you to remember my name. I'm gonna be doing what you're doing, Flaya." And and in his wisdom at the time, he said something super simple. And again, to this day, I don't even know if he remembers saying it, but we've talked about it many times. I still stay in touch with him. But he said, "Why wait 20 years?" You know,
Mm.
and I was like, "Well, who?" I was like 22 at the time. I was like 21 at the time. And I was like, "Well, who's gonna want to listen to me?" I'm just like 21. He asked me a bunch of questions about like my background and where I came from, and then he said, you could speak to students about how to be successful, but you could speak from a big brother perspective. He says, when I come in and speak, I'm like a father figure, but your youth, and because I come from the projects, overcome welfare, dean's list student, president for org, started a business when I was in school. He was like, you have a good story. You should do that. So a year later, I got into professional speaking, and now 18 years later, I've been doing it ever since.
Now, how often have you interacted with him since? Like, does he know the
Yeah.
impact he made?
Yeah, yeah, he knows. He knows. So we talk. I wouldn't say we talk weekly or monthly or anything like that, but I'll hit him up on social media every now and again. We've run into each other in person a few times. I've done posts where like I've given him his flowers, and he's seen it and commented on it. So like I one of the things that I love about speakers is that in our individual fields, like we could say one thing in the right way and it could forever change someone's life. And I give him a lot of flowers because of that statement, it accelerated the exact thing that I wanted to do, which I thought I had to, you know, um, again, be a 7-year-old dude before I even
Mhm.
started. So, to start and have all the experiences I had now, I believe professional speaking. I genuinely believe it is the singular most impactful art form in the shortest period of time possible. In 60 minutes, like Mandy can come in and do a sales presentation. She can come in and teach people and teach them one thing that in 60 minutes could totally change the way they look at sales, and then therefore change the way they approach the business and change the way that they like make money for their family. So I just love our art form because I think it's a business, but I really do think it's an art form.
I love that. And I want to hang here about your speaking. I know you've got a bunch of TEDx talks, but the one that really, really resonated with me was the one from 2017 about effort
Mhm.
Mm.
and how you talk about talent, boo hoo hoo, right? You can have background, boo hoo hoo, all these things. But what really matters is effort. And I translate that to grit. Like I grew
Mhm.
up in Ohio. I had my opportunities were different than a lot of other people that I knew, and all I had was hard work. My dad is an elevator mechanic. He taught me just work hard, right?
Mhm.
And I translate that to grit. So I want to hear from you, like in your
Mhm.
career, what are some of those effort stories? What are some of those
Mhm.
grit stories that you're like, I outgritted them, I efforted them.
Mhm.
They were smarter, they were richer, they had a greater background. Like what's a grit or effort story that might inspire somebody?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that like talent and family and all that stuff, like that's a genetic lottery, right? Like, okay, you're really good at art, you're really good at music, like you didn't do anything to earn that. That's the genetic lottery. You just got lucky. Your parents and your ancestors came together that allowed you to have this creativity. I believe effort is fully in control of us, right? So when I got started in my speaking career, that was something that I said I'm going to hang my hat on it, right? So I did tons of things that were unscalable in the beginning of my career.
Mm.
For example, this was before, I'm sure technology now makes this way easier. I created a web page for all of these potential clients, right? And I shot a video for each one of those clients that was unique to them. And this was not people who expressed interest into me. This
Mm.
was literally like, I'm doing a cold outreach, right? So it was like arelmoodie.com/HPN as an example,
Mm.
right? So, and I would say, hey, HPN, like I know you are one of the leading groups in buying venues and sales kickoffs and all those cool things. I think that's amazing. I happen to speak about this subject, and here's how I think it'll be helpful. And I did like research on that. And I created all these links and I made these videos knowing that the large majority of people were not going to respond to me, knowing that the large majority of people were going to be like, oh, isn't that like cute? But I was like, I have to get people's attention somehow. And I just sat there copying and pasting the website, changing the logos, shooting the video, doing some light editing, and just repeating that process over and over. Because my thought, and this was years in the past, that if someone saw a website with my name, with their name in the URL, they would have to at least click on it. They would have to at least be like, what the heck is this? And many folks didn't. And again, not most, but some did. And we also know how professional speaking works. You only need one.
Mhm.
And it's like it pays for all your efforts, just
That's right.
one. So, it was stuff like that I was willing to do. That when I would tell other speakers about, the response they would always get is like, I'm not trying to do all that. Like, could I just make one generic video and one
Mhm.
generic website? And I'm like, yeah, you can. Maybe it's going to have better results, but like my mindset was always like, what's most, the phrase that I spoke and the phrase that I try to live by is do what most people won't so you can have what most people don't.
Mhm.
And whatever most people would do, I would just kind of do the opposite, and it just worked out really well.
Beautiful.
Nice.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, great story. Let's kind of stay in the Wayback Machine and stay on the theme of old white men. Talk to us about why do you admire Angelo Mastrangelo? Hope I said his name
Ooh,
right.
you
So
did.
much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Angelo. Is when I say there is no singular non-related man in my life. So like not like my father. My father's an amazing man, right? But like non-related to me that has impacted me more than anyone else is Angelo he's retired since, was a professor of entrepreneurship at Binghamton University. And when I first started my entrepreneurial endeavors, I did this thing because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and they said rich people think differently than poor people. So I was like, well, I don't know any rich people. I got to meet rich people. So my strategy for meeting rich people was I would go up to successful business owners in the area where I went to college and say, I'm doing a student project and I've got to interview you.
Mm.
And I went to the local pizza owner and I interviewed him. And then I went to the local comic book store owner and I interviewed him. But at the end of every interview, I said, who do you know that's successful that I could interview for this project as well? And the comic book store owner said, have you met Angelo Mastrangelo? He had run this really, really big private label beverage company. So they would like make like Key Food soda, Food Town supermarket soda, but they also had their own brand called Adirondack soda. I mean, super big company. He had sold it, cashed out, became, got his PhD, got recognized. He got his like executive MBA from Harvard, just super smart dude, gritty old dude. So I was like, okay, when I found out about it, I was like, I got to meet this guy. So I meet him. And like within the first conversation with this dude, he spent like 3 hours with me. And I just wanted to like make him proud. And the reason why he means so much to me is because he was a successful guy. He like poured into me. And what I genuinely believe is that he saw a vision of me that I 100% did not see of myself at the time. And I tried to live into that vision just to like I didn't want him to think he was betting on the wrong horse. I didn't want him to think he was wrong. So he
Mm.
kept saying to me, he would say things every single conversation, "You're a star, kid. You're gonna go so far." He was like, "There's nothing you can't do. Like, I'm so proud of you, kid." Like, he kept talking to me like Mickey from like Rocky. You know, he was like my Mickey. Like, he just kept like,
Got me,
and
Mick. Yeah.
yeah, and I just like I had this goal of like I've got to make him proud. I've got to make him feel like he was correct. And I met him when I was like probably 19, 20, and to this day I still talk to him, still call him for advice. And he's one of the most cherished human beings not related to me that exists in this world.
See, excellent story. Love it.
Hey
That
man,
reminds me of, are you a Luther Vandross fan, either of you?
I am. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So David Bowie believed in Luther before Luther believed in Luther. And so your
Mm.
story runs a parallel to that. This is the music guy in me, you know, the historian, the R&B musicologist, but that story reminds me of that.
Yeah, sometimes you got to borrow other people's confidence in yourself until you have that confidence in your own. So either
Yes.
get it yourself or get it from someone else.
Now, when you look at today, and you work with a lot of youth, and you've worked with a lot of youth for your entire career,
Mhm.
when you're looking at like new speakers, what advice do you give to new speakers who maybe want to follow in your same footsteps?
Yeah, you have to understand there's two sides of the speaking business, and I think most people don't understand that. There's the art side and there's the business side, and you've got to be students of both sides. I see a lot of people come in and they're high on the art side, so they're higher on the like, I got this really great talk and it's really amazing, and I used to be, an actor on Broadway. I know how to do monologues, so I built this incredible monologue. Super low on the business acumen side. And then I see other people come in and they have really terrible speaking skills, but they understand how sales and business works. So they just like pour into that. But then like you go on stage and you're not really doing anything on stage. So I think you've got to one, look at it as a both of those are crafts. Those are the same way that DJing is a craft, right? So as a DJ, you're never done being a DJ, right? You're never as good as you can be in being a DJ. There's always a new level to unlock. And the first thing to look at the art of speaking is there's always a new level to unlock with speaking. And I think too many speakers come in and they say this garbage phrase, and I hate this phrase. And when a speaker says it, just know on the inside, I die a little bit if you speak to me and you actually care about my feelings. If you don't care about my feelings, speak to me and die, make me die as much as you want. When speakers say, "Oh, I don't need to work on my speaking. I'm already really good at that." That's like a guitar player saying, "I don't have to play the guitar anymore. I'm really good at it, but I want to go on world tours." Like, do you have any idea how much effort goes into being world class at an instrument, at singing, at anything? Like
Yeah.
our voice, our speaking is that. So one, like whenever people think they're like, "I don't need to work on my craft, I'm good." That like I would say we always have to work on our craft. And then on the
Yes.
business side, we always have to work on the business side. So there's always a new level to unlock, and you can never dial in either of those. Whenever you dial in the business or the skill, you'll I imagine it's kind of like riding your bicycle. Like if you pump your legs really, really hard and then stop pumping your legs, you can coast for a little bit,
Mhm.
but eventually that bike's going to come to a stop. So either your business will stop or well, usually your business stops. Like if one of those two stops, your skill or your business, your bike will come to a complete stop because you're either using references and stories that are no longer resonating, or your ability to get in front of people and turn them into clients is declined. And what used to work doesn't always keep working. Some things are universal, some things are timeless, some things are time boxed. So that's the advice I would give to a young person is I would say, you have to ask yourself, how do I constantly get better at the craft? And how do I constantly get better at the business? And there's a million entry points to either one of those, but like it's a mindset to start.
Yeah. It's very similar to the music industry. Most people come in, they can sing and they can perform, but they do not have a clue about the music business and how it operates. So
Yeah.
very similar there. Mandy?
I yeah, well, I appreciate because in the business world, one of the questions that we'll ask sometimes in the podcast, or I'll ask my customers, is like, how are you making space for yourself to be creative? How are
Mm.
you making space for yourself to design and grow in that area? And so many times people on the business side are like, what space for what? Time for what? And it's what I appreciate you visually laying out is that duality, that importance of that duality. You've got to make space for the art, you've got to make space for the business, and you've got to keep improving on that craft. So I love that. So with that, I want to ask you about Talkadot because
Mm.
It is an extension of the speaker's toolkit, and as a buyer of, some of the higher speakers all the time, it's an extension of a metric that would matter to me as well. So I'm curious, how, with all of these accolades and all this stuff you're doing in your world, how did Talkadot come about? What
Mm.
is Talkadot? Why should we be using it on both sides, as somebody that hires speakers or as for speakers?
Yeah, so Talkadot in its core is a tool that helps speakers measure the impact of their presentation. So you can what's used to be very ethereal, untouchable, we can actually turn into numbers, quantitative data like audience feedback, and qualitative data, and we can help speakers pull out speaking leads from their audience as well. So it does all of that. So the client wins because they get an actual feedback report, and we get about 60 to 80% of our audiences typically responding to our report when done correctly, which is much higher than the industry standard feedback response rate. The speaker wins because they can get those 1% improvements based on what the audience is saying, and they can get leads from the audience, so that because your audience is your best vehicle to get more speaking engagements, right? Someone in your audience who sees you speak and goes, "Oh my gosh, Amani, the way that you helped our meeting professionals unlock their creativity blows my mind. I need to get you in touch with this person because they need that as well." Like, that is the most qualified, best referral, period. Or if someone wants to book you themselves. The challenge was that process was all one, most speakers don't get feedback. So they don't measure how well they do. So what happens for speakers, and this happened for me, you have to recreate the wheel every single time. You do a speech, there's nothing, and then you're like starting from zero every single time, and it was so frustrating because it didn't matter if I had a flagship year. Next year I could have zero on my calendar, and I'd have to start that process all over again. It was
Mhm.
I always feel like a shark, like I have to keep swimming or I'm going to die, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to figure out, like, one, I always had this desire of, like, I wish it could be better, right? So that's what the tool does. Now, how it came about was, as a speaker, you get lots of people who ask you for advice as a speaker, right? And I'm sure, like, as DJ, Amro, you get tons of questions about being a DJ and,
Mhm.
media buying and, excuse me, venue buying. People can ask you questions like, how do I get my room rate down? And blah, blah, you get questions. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm part of a entrepreneurship group, and there was a member who I was leading speaking, like just teaching people about speaking. And she's like, "Hey, I really want to get better at it. Can you work with me?" And I said, "Sure." So I coached this amazing young lady who had a gaming business, had sold the gaming business, and then was like looking for her next thing, and she thought speaking was it. So we spent X amount of time working on the art and putting together what is her message, how does she put her speech together, all that kind of fun stuff. But then we got to the business side of it. I started explaining to her the business of speaking, and she just kept saying to me, "Why is it done that way? Why is it done that way?"
Mm.
And I kept saying, "Well, that's the way it's always been." It's
Mm.
it's like, yeah, like there really is no way to tell if someone is good. You have to either see them speak or be referred to them. Like, there really is no quantifiable way. She's like, "Well, why?" Like, if I want to get an Airbnb, I can look at reviews of an Airbnb. I'm like, "Well, there's nothing that does that." So, like, tis what it is. And then
Mm.
she was like, "It should be better." And I was like, "It should be, but unless someone fixes it or we do, it ain't gonna be better." She was like, "Well, what if we fixed it?"
Mm.
And I was like, "Well, what do you okay, So we started talking about it, and she had the product background, and she knew it. I understood the speaking space. So she was like, "Well, what if we, like, worked on actually taking this industry that, respectfully, and I'm in this industry and I love this industry, it's kind of archaic, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of years in the past where it could be updated." And I was like, "Yeah, like, let's do it." So that's the impetus for of how Talkadot came about. So I was like, the worst thing that happens is I create a tool that makes my life significantly easier and better, and I get to show with data and with testimonials and get leads and turn one talk into multiple talks, and my life's better. The best thing that happens is we can change an industry. And we have 7,000 speakers that are using our tool. We're constantly growing, and our goal is to become like the Trustpilot, the Yelp in the speaking industry, but also help the right speakers get connected with the right audiences, so that the right people stay in the industry. Because speaking has a lot of people who get in and then they quit because they think it's
Mm,
not a real business. They think it's like,
mm,
oh, I could just get paid a bunch of money to speak. That's easy. But it's like, no, it's a business like anything else is a business.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
helping create those tools to make it easier, we're hoping will allow the right people with the right messages to actually stay in it versus getting burnt out.
I love that. Okay, so I have a couple more questions on this. So I think I
Mhm.
saw on your Instagram post recently that a speaker got a $50,000 gig or multiple
Mhm.
$50,000 gigs because of Talkadot.
Mhm.
So just from a practical standpoint, walk us through how that worked for him or how that
Absolutely.
might work for a speaker that's listening.
Yeah. So what happens is, as a speaker, the way Talkadot works is I have a slide that has a QR code on it that Talkadot creates. So you ask your audience, "Hey, thank you so much for attending my presentation. I'd love to get your thoughts on this presentation. As a thank you for giving me your feedback, I'm going to give you a copy of my slide deck, or I'm going to give you a copy of my ebook, or whatever, something that is of interest to the audience." They then scan the QR code and it leads to this specifically designed feedback flow, a survey. Now, what's interesting is that the survey moves automatically in different directions based on how people answer. So,
Mm,
one of the questions is, do you book speakers? If the person in the audience says no, we skip any other lead generation questions. So they're not getting peppered with questions that are not relevant to them, causing them to get upset or angry. But if they do book speakers, we then qualify them and say, well, would you like to book Mandy for a speaking engagement? They say yes. Then they answer the questions, and then we go, tell us more about that speaking engagement. And then they can say, oh, I'm hiring for, I have a 2025 sales kickoff in Vegas. We need an opening keynote speaker. Please contact me. So now when Ken walks off the stage, or Amani walks off the stage, or Mandy walks off the stage, you literally have a list of everyone in your audience who can book speakers. And you have a list of the types of events that they could possibly book you for, but you never bothered anybody who doesn't actually want to book you to speak, right? So now
mm,
all Ken has to do is reach out to these people and say, "Hey, thanks so much for attending my recent event. You said there's this sales event. I'd love to talk to you more." And then you can just book them right there. We have automatic sale emails that go out to people as well, so some stuff can be automated. But what's great about it is at the end of a talk, most speakers rely on people walking up to them and handing them their business card
that's right.
to grow their business. And it's so flawed because, number one, if you're a good speaker, what happens at the end of your speech? You get mobbed. There's a crowd of people. You
Hmm.
can't talk to everyone that wants to talk to you. It's physically impossible. Or logistically, speakers might have to, like, the audience might have to go to breakout sessions right after
Yeah.
your keynote, so they can't stick around and talk to you. There may be another keynote speaker coming right after you. So if you rely solely on people who can book you coming up and handing cards, you're leaving so much business on the table. And this way, by the time you walk off stage, like what, and I think you're referring to Ken Hartley, the post that I did, what Ken did is by using Talkadot, getting those leads and following up with the people who express interest, he's able to close them. And he, probably wouldn't have got that if he just hoped and wished that people would find him. So it's a way of being proactive versus reactive in growing your business.
I love that. And then on the flip side, for somebody that books speakers, what's the benefit to them
Mhm.
to work with Talkadot or to have Talkadot?
I
Or sometimes they have to suggest it to speakers, right? Like it just to keep some consistency on their speaker tracks too.
Yeah, I would recommend every person who books speakers, especially if there's any event planners wishing this, every speaker asks them, "Let me see your Talkadot scores. Let me see your talk," because Talkadot is
Mm,
third party. It's uneditable by the speaker. So the difference between like a Google form or a Survey Monkey is if I don't like a response, I could delete it. So I can just send you the data of the data that I like that show like 100%, 100% all the time. Our feedback, since it's third party and it's objective, if your audience is actually resonating with someone, those numbers are real. So someone can send a link that is called your public profile, which has a list of all of your past presentations and all of your data in one cumulative score. So in one link. Or I could say, hey, I'm a technology company. Can you send me at least 3 Talkadot scores of 3 previous technology companies that you worked with? The reason why that's valuable is because what most event planners do is they ask for references. Can you give me 3
right.
people you've worked with? I would, in addition, ask for Talkadot feedback because you can actually see the actual language audience members are using. So if someone says, "Yeah, I can say that, no problem. Here's 3 links to 3 events that I've done, or here's my public profile," as an event planner, I can actually see what people are saying, raw, uncut, unedited, which is again more real, then like if I give you 3 references, I'm gonna call up my references and be like, hey Joe, just so you know, I gave your name to Mandy.
Yeah.
Could you please like talk me up? Like expect to get the phone call. And sometimes people will do you a solid, and it's that. But this is real, and that's what I think the industry needs. We need that third party, objective, verified feedback.
I love the ranking system because as a planner, it takes so much time also to play phone tag with the references, to do the emails.
That's right.
So just the third party ranking system, and I encourage any planners listening. We have a lot of planners in our audience. So any planners listening or watching, start asking speakers, what's your Talkadot score? I love this. And it's the numbers don't lie and that feedback doesn't lie. So that's awesome. I love that.
Right. Yeah.
What has surprised you about the growth of Talkadot?
Man, that's a great question. So I'll tell you what the honest answer is.
Of course.
Right? I get feedback from people that's like, man, y'all are growing so fast. I see y'all everywhere. Speakers are using you all over the place. But internally, I'm like, there's so many more speakers out there, So sometimes I feel like the external and the internal, that's what surprises me, is that it doesn't always feel like and maybe it's just my personality. Like I'm so driven because I'm like, I know that our TAM, total addressable market, is probably around 100,000. So when I see 7,000, again, I'm very grateful. I know that represents 7,000 unique speakers, right? But I'm like, that's 7% of the TAM. Like we got so much more. Like I want every other I want every speaker. I want this to be the like ipso facto tool that everyone uses. And I want to have that conversation with speakers that we're starting to have now, which is fun. And I admit, like, this part I love. Like a year ago, I would talk to speakers about Talkadot and they would all be like, what is it?
That's what I said when Amani told me about it.
Yeah, they're like, what?
Yeah, what?
Now, at least a little bit more people like, I heard about y'all, or oh, I know, oh, my friend uses y'all, or oh, I've seen you in. So like that part has surprised me, like seeing people in the wild take pictures of a Talkadot slide and send it to me, or people recognizing it. But like internally, I want so much more, and externally, I think people are like, "Ah, man, you're doing great," and I'm like, not yet.
You also have a very